Hello, and welcome to the Empowerography Podcast. This is a platform created for women's voices to be heard and a place to share their stories, journeys, and successes with the world for the purpose of helping other women who might be on similar journeys. We are empowering women one episode at a time. I'm your host, Brad Walsh, so kick back, grab one of your favorite beverages, and enjoy the stories. The world needs to hear your message and your story, so don't deny the world of that gift within you that the universe has given you. Someone out there needs to hear your story because it will support them in feeling hope, inspired, and even transformed. Do you want to discover how I help get my clients out of their own way, show up, and confidently share their message? I would love to extend an invitation to you to join me in my free masterclass, Start Your Own Podcast from Idea to Implementation, on Wednesday, April 5th at 1 p.m. Eastern. You can find the registry link in the show notes. Hope to see you there. Hello there, Brad Walsh here, your host of the Empowerography Podcast. Today, my guest is Monica Shulman. She is a painter/artist. Welcome, Monica. It is so wonderful to have you here. I'm so excited about speaking with you and learning all about the beautiful light you put out into the world through your artwork and just learning a bit about your story and your journey. So thank you for taking and making the time and being here with me today. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. It's been really nice getting to know you through listening to your podcasts and your guests. So I'm happy to be here today.
Oh, thank you. I'm honored and so excited to have you here. So with that being said, let's jump right in. I would love to know, was there a defining moment or experience for you that ignited your passion for art, leading you to become a painter? And how long have you been painting now?
It's hard to think to pinpoint one exact moment. I grew up in a family where my parents were very creative in what they were interested in. And they were always exposing my sister and me to art and travel. And I'm a first generation American. So my parents were very innovative in how they were remaking their lives. My mom is a Cuban refugee. She came here when she was 15. My father came when he was in his early 20s. He was visiting my great-grandmother, actually, who was living in New York from Argentina. She's of Italian descent, and she had immigrated here. And so art was always kind of part of my life in the sense that my parents exposed me to it. I did take art classes when I was younger in high school and always had sort of my finger on the pulse, like very interested in photography. My dad's an amateur photographer, and so we took pictures together and he would develop them in our basement. But when I got to college, I kind of abandoned that part of myself because I always think of myself as a very layered person. I have a lot of niche interests, and I've always been sort of motivated and encouraged by my family to explore that. And I love science and history and archaeology and travel and art, and I studied political science and French language in college and always going to museums, but not really painting until fast forwarding. I ended up in law school after college and then, which is of course like a whole other story. And then really being interested again in sort of exploring art and photography. And I quit my job as a lawyer when I was barely 30 from being completely burnt out and was working as a photographer. But it wasn't until about 7 years ago that I revisited my passion for painting that I had explored when I was in high school after taking classes in oil paints, that I wanted to sort of revisit that. And so there was a lot that went into doing that. One of the things that I am not very good at is editing. So something that could have been said in maybe 5 words or less, you could see it in my art too, because there's like a lot of paint, a lot of color, a lot of energy. But my passion has always been there. It just was something that I had abandoned for a very long time. And then life circumstances and being inspired by where I'm living now and leaving New York City and leaving my career and making up this whole new career as a photographer, and a lot that went into that has sort of brought me to this moment where I'm in right now.
I love it. So do you still shoot?
I do.
Excellent.
Now, my photography is something that I will always be passionate about. And it actually, like the roots of my vision as a painter, I think I can attribute a lot to the way that I see the world and the sort of the marriage of light and line. And the way that I really developed my abstract language and my visual language as an artist is that when I was shooting photography, the things that I was most interested were the people and the story. Yeah. Which ironically is the thing that I really liked about being a lawyer was that I wanted to help people and I wanted to learn about people and those dynamics. And I took that into my work as a photographer, and then eventually started to become really interested in the stories that were happening in the negative space. And what were those stories that I could tell? What was happening there? And what stories could I make up, really? Because photography was like, this is a moment, it's happening, right?
Yes.
And as an abstract painter, it's what other stories can I make up about this moment?
Mm-hmm.
What's happening? What's happening with the light? What's happening with what's going on in the background?
Photography, I love it. It's that play with light and shadow and being able to capture that moment in time that you will never, ever get to capture in the same way ever again. There's something magical. And then you mentioned that you would help your dad down in the dark room in the basement. That to me, it's such a magical process to see those images. For me anyways, when I took it in high school, to see those images come to life on the paper as you run them through the chemical baths, that is such a beautiful and magical process. And the really smells and just everything.
Well, it really is. And also it's that process, right? It's very meditative. And I think with photography, something that you capture that moment, as you said, and that's it. In that split second, it's over. Yeah. And it's never going to be the same. Nope. And we see it even in our digital cameras and our devices. If you just keep taking pictures, you might have 50 pictures of the same moment that happened. And but they're all unique in a way, and they all add something different. And that's really what I love about photography too, just to piggyback on what you were saying. It really is something very special.
It is. And I absolutely love it. It's just, that's my first love and my first passion is photography. I mean, it fills my soul. It's amazing. What drives, motivates, and inspires you to keep going and excelling at all that you do, Monica?
First and foremost, my family. I'm so inspired by them. They're raising a family, being with my husband, and just feeling very motivated to be a positive role model for my children. That's my driver, really.
Are your children interested in the arts?
My daughter was really into theater and performing arts. They're both very curious kids. They explore different things. And the way that my parents did it for me, I really want to encourage them to try different things. I've been taking them to museums since they were very small. And we go to a Broadway show every year, and we go to museums, and we're outside in nature and just exposing them as much as possible, whether they like it or not all the time. I don't know. But I'm in a family where we all do different things for each other, right? So my husband and my son love baseball, and I'd never gone to baseball games growing up, but I love going to a baseball game. And I love doing things with each of my kids, things that interest them. So for me, that's museums and art galleries and shows. And they'll grow up and they'll decide whether they like it or not. But I think my job as a parent is to expose them to as much as I can and let them decide.
Love it. Now, I'm curious, firstly, do you have any formal art training? Did you take photography classes? Did you take painting classes? Or are you completely self-taught? And what are your thoughts on formal education and art training? Do you think it's absolutely necessary for people who want to step into the art world and get trained or training for artistry?
So I went to art school and classes when I was much younger, like I said, in high school. I went to a very small painting school. It was called the Roslyn School of Painting in Long Island, New York. That's where I grew up. And after that, as I said, I kind of abandoned that part of myself. So I would consider myself primarily self-taught right now. My sister actually is getting her Master's of Fine Arts right now. And I think it's a beautiful thing to be able to explore education in different ways. I think that I have a lot of friends who have gone to art school and they talk about how valuable it was. I have a lot of friends who are self-taught and they talk about how valuable that is. For me personally, where I was in my life at the time, I didn't even consider going to art school. I didn't really have a plan. I just wanted to start painting again and I wanted to explore that. So I can't really say whether or not I think it's necessary. For me, so far, it hasn't been. I think the crucial component for me is having community as an artist. And I think another thing that's really happening right now with contemporary art is that it's becoming more inclusive. And I think that once we invite different voices, only good things can come from that, because we are unable really to move forward without having that inclusivity and without having different voices sharing their histories and their ideas. And I think that once we start moving more into that direction, whatever that may be, I think it's important to include those different voices and to have different people be part of the conversation. Art is for everyone, whether no matter where you are, people can have an opinion. I think the important thing is that we're inviting people to be part of that conversation.
The arts are incredible, no matter what art form it is, painting, photography, music. There's so many different ways to express creativity, and it's all beautiful. And we need to expose as many people as we can to the arts. It is healing. It is beautiful. It's just incredible. I hear a lot of people say that they don't have a creative bone in their body. It's just not who they are, or it's not within them. What are your thoughts on that when you hear people say that?
I think people confused artistic ability with creativity. And I think that first I'll say that I think everyone has creativity within them. Mm-hmm. I think it's important to practice your creativity and hone it and work it out like any other muscle in your body.
Yeah.
I think that when we're thinking about people who are creative, people who are innovators, I don't necessarily know that they are artistically inclined in terms of whether they can play an instrument or whether they can write or whether they can make a painting or take a picture. And so I think that those things do get sort of muddled and confused. But I do think that everyone is creative. And people tell me that all the time. And I tell them just the way that you get dressed in the morning is creative. You decide what to make for dinner is being creative. Do I want to take the long way home or do I want to take a shortcut? All of those things require creativity. And I think that it sort of gets lost in it when we kind of jumble those two things, artistic ability and creativity and innovation.
I think everybody can be artistic too. Again, it's like you said, though, you have to practice. You have to work that muscle. I think everybody has the ability within them to do it. But yeah, I love that you share that they do get confused because creativity, you can be creative in so many different ways and everybody has it within them. But I really believe that everyone also has artistic ability within them too. It's just a matter of whether they tap into it.
Yeah, I think we have to really shift our perspective about that because I think it's important to look at it as a way of life and not just as a thing that you do.
Yeah, for sure. Now, when you're creating your artwork, where do you pull your inspiration from?
I consider myself a lifelong learner. So I just feel like my curiosity is my biggest strength. And I'm curious about everything. I tend to go down Google rabbit holes all the time. But really the way that I get most of my inspiration is by shutting things down, being outside and letting myself take in my surroundings. And sometimes not getting so bogged down in Google and everything else and just letting myself be outdoors and not having so much input. I think we're living in a moment right now where we're getting information so quickly and it's very easy to be inspired by that. But I think it's also important to be intentional with your choices about how you let inspiration in. And for me, a lot of times I'll just have to shut everything down, be in silence, be in nature, let my mind wander. You know, there's a reason why people say that, like in that quiet, that there is so much magic that can happen there. So I get my inspiration really from my experiences, being out in nature, my relationships, intentional scrolling, if you will, because of course we all do that. But just the quieting down, I think, is a huge part of my process as an artist too.
Now, what is your favorite thing or what lights you up the most about being an artist?
For me, it's really the freedom of thought and the freedom of just being able to go down any path. And it's so rare to be able to get that. And there's no rules inside my studio. We're so guided by rules in society, and it's important, obviously. But when I'm painting or when I'm creating, I think what's happening is like this playfulness and this exploration of my own ideas and curiosity and that freedom. And it's really become very foundational for me personally, because especially the world and there's so much going on at any given moment. There's so much information to take in, but time sort of stands still when I'm creating. And
you get lost in it.
It's really important for me. Yeah, you get lost in it. And just to have that freedom of thought and that freedom of expression and to not feel like you are tied down by any expectations, my own or other people's. So it's really nice to be able to have that outlet.
I love being able to just take my camera and go and just walk around a city or wherever I am and just freely walk around and look at everything and take it all in. It's a beautiful process.
It really is. And I think it's so important for us because we are so connected all the time to be able to just let your brain have a rest. And it's very privileged to be able to say that. I fully acknowledge that, to be able to just turn things off and to just exist in a moment and just with that peacefulness. But it's really important for me as a creative person to have that time. And that freedom is something that I value so much.
Did you have trouble wearing that title of artist? Like calling yourself an artist, grasping that?
That is something that I would not say for a very long time, because unfortunately for me, I mean, this is not a unique experience, right? Like imposter syndrome is real. And I actually had this conversation with a few people recently where we were talking about the freedom, again, that comes with just relinquishing those expectations from other people. But something has clicked. I don't know if it's like my age or just been doing this for long enough now, or maybe the result of living in a post-COVID-19 world where this is it. Like we get one chance, and having that mindset shift for me has been so important because that imposter syndrome is so real. And if you let yourself, I mean, I'm saying this for myself, right? If I let myself be inhibited by that and not call myself an artist and not own who I am, it's so dangerous because I'm already going into it with limiting beliefs and a limited mindset. And so when you let go of that, for me personally, and just say it out loud, yes, I am an artist.
Say it loud, say it proud.
Having that be part of my experience and my narrative, it's also the realization that our narratives and our life experiences are not linear. Yeah. And so I can have all those layers to myself. That's such a huge part of my identity as being an artist. So it's such a huge part of my identity and who I am. And so it used to be much harder for me, but now I don't let myself be limited by that. And I don't let myself go down that road where I don't own who I am and acknowledge it, flaws and all.
It's a process for sure. It takes work, definitely. I would love to know, as being an artist myself as well, and I'm curious how you deal with creative blocks. How do you deal with them when they come up? And what have you found helps you get through those times? Because we all experience them.
It is, and it's so frustrating. I just get myself outside. It is so frustrating because you feel like, what am I doing? And it's like that entrepreneur / artist, creative person dynamic where you just start questioning everything. I just get outside. I just turn it off. I don't let myself stay there. I don't let myself focus on that negativity and that sort of, what am I doing? Second guessing, all those sort of dangerous thoughts that come in. And I just get outside and I stop and I just turn it off. And sometimes I don't come back to things for a while, or I'll shift and I'll work on something else. I have this sort of obsessive diaristic habit. I write in my diaries every day and I have stacks of them. And in fact, during the pandemic, I found a box in my basement filled with old diaries, and very cringy to go back and read what you had said, but I have things from when I was a teenager leading all the way through my 20s, and I kind of stopped in my mid-30s. But writing for me is such a huge part of my process. And a lot of times it's just lists or ideas, but a lot of times it's just what happened in my day and what I'm feeling. How is my body feeling? And it has become a really important part of my practice when I'm feeling blocked and also when I'm feeling very inspired. So for me, getting outside, being in nature, and just writing in my diaries has been something that has always helped me when I'm feeling that creativity block. And also knowing that you're not always going to be inspired all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's okay. It's okay not to feel like you're creating all the time and you're doing things. Even January for me is usually a month where I'm feeling so bogged down and I take the time to just stop what I'm doing and focus. And this year I was so busy that I feel like I didn't have time to take that step back. And that's good too. So I think taking those quiet moments for yourself and realizing that this is a normal part of the process because it's not linear and it's always up and down, and your creativity comes in waves like anything else.
Yeah, for sure.
But again, it's like a shifting of a mindset and not letting yourself stay so focused in that.
I know that a lot of artists, painters, songwriters, musicians, all of these things, a lot of them have processes, creative processes they have in place when they sit down to create their art. Do you have a process or a ritual that you go through when you decide that it's time to create a new piece of art? And what is that? And how do you navigate the balance between inspiration and discipline when approaching a new painting?
Discipline is such a huge part of my art practice because I am a mom to 2 young kids and my time is at such a premium. I mean, I just have to be very disciplined about my day. And I'm a person who likes lists and I like schedules, but I also like flexibility and I like quiet. And part of my process is having that time to sort of internalize. But once my family is out of my house, I have a very busy morning until I get to my studio. I exercise every day. I walk my dog. I move. I do things that are going to sort of get me into that mindset of getting to my studio. When I get to my studio, I always start either with my writing in my journals or in my sketchbook. And I'm an intuitive painter, so I don't really sketch out my ideas first, but it's just like a warm up for me that I really enjoy doing. And then other days, like I said, I'm flexible. So I'll just go right to the canvas, especially if I had to stop early the night before because I had to pick up my kids or run an errand or do whatever. But my process is very intentional and it involves a lot of time to sort of internalize what I'm experiencing, what I'm going through. It involves a lot of quiet time, being outside, exercise and movement, and just looking inward. A lot of it is just that quiet. And the time that I get to spend painting is so much more, I feel enriched by that because I have taken that time. And sometimes I just get really excited and I'm very busy and I'm working under deadline and I have things that I need to finish. So that's important for me too. I always say I reserve the right to change my mind and to be flexible with things depending on my mood or what's going on in my life or if one of my kids is sick, whatever's happening in the moment. I don't let myself be too bogged down by what I think I should be doing versus what I need to be doing in the moment. But I do have something, I like to do it when I don't get to move during the day and when I don't get to do the things that bring me joy like that. I feel it. I definitely feel it.
Yeah, for sure. I love asking this question of artists and creatives and hearing different people's thoughts on this. As a creative, we've talked about this. We all have creativity within us. And I think about this a lot when it comes to athletes, musicians, all people of that upper level, artists, athletes, musicians. And of course, there are people who are in these worlds that it just seems like they are just innately born with this incredible talent that is just otherworldly. Like you think about certain Beethoven and painters like Van Gogh and all that. You just think that they came out with a paintbrush. You know what I mean? They've just got that level of talent that is just out of this world. Now, that's a small percentage of people, I think, in the world. Do you believe that we'll call them the regular people like you and myself can achieve that level of talent through practicing, that will get to that point? And this is not to say that those people don't have to practice their craft as well. Of course they do. But do you think it's possible for us regular people to reach that level of talent? Even if we work at it, do you think we can get that level of talent? Or is that just something that's just, it's out of this world and we cannot, there's just certain people that have it and some that just don't?
Yeah. I mean, First, I'll say I don't really like labels, right? So I don't think of us as regular. We're people and we are complicated and layered and we have so much that we bring to the table. I think anything worth doing takes practice. Anything, whether you're an elite athlete or whether you are just like somebody who likes to run for fun or exercise or do whatever. I think that the main driver is always like our passion. Like how motivated, how badly do you want something that you're willing to do whatever it takes? And no, not everyone is going to be a composer, an elite composer or an elite athlete or anything of that higher level. Not everyone's going to do that, but that doesn't mean that it's not worth pursuing your ideas and your passion. So I think that's really the main driver. Of course, having an innate talent will help. How badly do you want it? And how focused are you? And how much do you want to explore that interest that you have?
Yeah.
So Yeah, I mean, and then not everybody can be Serena Williams. I mean, clearly. And that's somebody who I admire so much and just such an incredible role model and so strong and such a tremendous athlete. I mean, I like tennis, but it's like a hobby. It's something that I enjoy. I'm not very good at it. I'll stay in my studio painting, but I do think that at the core of it is your passion and your motivation. How badly do you want to achieve?
But do you think
how much do you want to work toward it?
Do you think it is possible, though, to achieve that level, to get that level of greatness if you do put in the work and you do put in the time? You think that's possible?
I mean, it's such a hard question because I think anything is possible. I really do. I think that my family is a good example of how literally anything is possible. I think that people just have to be motivated and passionate about what they're doing. But I also think that people want different things. But no, I don't think everybody can be a Serena or whoever. But I do think that it's important that whatever reason that you're doing what you're doing, it's because you want to be there and it's because you are willing to put in the work and you're passionate about what you're doing. And that's something that I think about all the time, like doing things with purpose and doing things because there is that voice inside of you that is your intuition. It's like a sixth sense and it's guiding you and you have to listen to that. And so also I think it's your end goal. What is your end goal when you're trying to achieve something? Why are you doing that? But I think that people, especially now, like they get bogged down with so many labels and they get bogged down with this idea that like you have to be the best, you have to be elite, you have to be number one. And I think the process is part of that journey, right? Yeah. And going to achieve that end goal and the practice. But without that passion, without that driver, without that innate curiosity and following your intuition, then I definitely don't think it's possible.
Yeah. Do you believe that art, particularly we'll talk about your paintings, can serve as a tool for empowerment or social change?
Absolutely.
How?
I think that there are so many people doing incredible things right now and getting people to think beyond the bounds of what their minds think that they can view or see or experience. And art is just a vehicle for doing that. I always say to people, when you're looking at a painting, how does it make you feel? And that's a way sort of to go back to what you were saying earlier about being creative and versus being artistic. One way to access your creativity is stand in front of a painting and talk about it. How does it make you feel when you're looking at something? Access those feelings. And there are people who are making art right now that you want to cry when you're standing in front of it. It's so beautiful. But somebody else could walk by it and be like, I don't get it. I don't know why. It's nice. And I always say that's like the most hurtful thing that someone can say to me personally. And I don't take comments personally, really, because it's so subjective looking at a piece of art. But it's nice. That's like such a non-descriptive word. Like my mailman is really nicest guy. Well, I just feel like when you look at a piece of art, what are those feelings that they are evoking? And I think that is a very important question that you should ask yourself. But I definitely think that art has an ability to motivate and change and inspire people.
That's one thing I used to love because I used to exhibit my work at art shows around Toronto. And my most favorite part of exhibiting was hearing people's thoughts on a piece when they stand in front. What does that piece tell you? What story are you creating? You'd hear people talk about stories that they would create by looking at it. That's what it's about for me, is evoking the emotions and hearing those stories from the people. That lit me up. So I absolutely love that part of it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm always curious about how someone feels and how they can access those feelings. And that story that someone tells themselves becomes part of the narrative of my own painting. Yeah. And I feel like it's just as important. And my story means one thing to me, but there are hundreds of stories depending on who's looking at the piece.
Yeah,
that becomes part of it too. And I think that's really a very beautiful and intense thing about art, is that it does mean different things to different people. And it does bring up memories or thoughts that you may never even have thought about before. When is it not important to look at art and to be part of that conversation?
For sure. Now, reflecting on your artistic journey, how have you evolved as an artist, both in terms of style and the messages you aim to convey through your art?
Well, I think first, I started from when I was much younger, and I loved to draw and I loved to paint. And then evolving into photography, of course, just looking at people and viewing people and having just a different medium to access that. And now, as primarily an abstract painter, where I am in my life right now is obviously very different from when I was, and thank God, when I was a teenager and then in my 20s and 30s and 40s and now. And I think that my work hasn't necessarily evolved just in terms of the way that my life has evolved. And it has not been a linear path. And all of the stories that I'm telling through my art are through personal experience. Just the way that I work in collections, and all of those collections are a moment in time. They've become part of my narrative, and they necessarily form part of my story as a mother, and the collection that I created post 2020 and the collection that I created during the pandemic. And prior to that, the first collection that I created when I started painting again, and where I am now and how I'm thinking about the future and the way that my ideas like sort of percolate. This last summer, I had my first artist residency in Italy, and I went there without a plan. And I do think it's important sometimes to approach things that way, especially as somebody who likes lists and likes to know what's coming next, and have never been a big fan of surprises. And as somebody who unfortunately used to suffer from crippling overthinking, I think I'm recovering from that a little bit. We can, of course, explore that. But I went there without having a plan, and it turned out to be the best thing ever. And I realized that sometimes no plan is a good idea. And I let my time there speak to what I was going to create. And I just wanted to listen to what was happening around me. I arrived there, and that first night in this house, we were in this beautiful ancestral home in northern Italy, about an hour and a half from Milan and Venice, halfway through each. And it had been a beautiful day when we arrived. And that night, it was like the earth was cracking in two. There was this horrible storm. The whole house shook. And I was just lying in bed, repeating something to myself that I often, it's like a bit of a mantra when I'm feeling anxious. It's, I'm safe. I'm okay. I'm safe. I'm okay. And the next morning, it was so beautiful out. And I thought, did that happen? Was that real? And this story that I started to form in my mind was like, okay, I came here. I didn't know anyone. I second guessed myself even applying for this opportunity. I almost didn't come here. And now I'm having this out-of-body experience in this place that I've never been before with people who ended up becoming lifelong friends. But at the time, I didn't know that. And I created in record time, it was 1 week, these 3 beautiful paintings. And I say beautiful because to me, they were beautiful because it was just like my feelings poured out. Reasonable people can disagree as to what's beautiful and not, right?
Right.
But it was just telling my story in this moment. And that became a very important part of my narrative. And so I think that when we're talking about personal growth and journeys and how, we evolve, me as an artist, absolutely my life experience comes into my art practice and in my work. If I'm feeling down and not motivated, it's going to be very hard for me to create work. And that's okay. There have been slow periods too. If I'm feeling very excited or motivated or inspired, that is going to affect my work very much. But I let myself be guided by that intuition and not always be so bogged down by my lists and like my need for order and control. Yeah. There's a lot of letting go and surrendering when it comes
being
to
in flow,
being an artist and having that flow. And you achieve that when you sort of surrender that and let yourself just be letting things evolve naturally without overthinking them too much. And that's been a really important life lesson and also a professional lesson too.
As they say, art has the power to heal. Have there been instances where your art or the act of creating has been a source of personal healing or transformation for you?
Yes. And that was a very sort of hard lesson to learn. And it came about again, like during the pandemic, that forced slowdown. I had really never processed this before, but I had gone through with my husband infertility, and we had various treatments, and both of my children were born via in vitro fertilization. And we had experienced a lot of very difficult moments as a couple and a lot of letdown and just a lot of really hard and heavy and sad experiences and moments. But then once I had my children, after a lot of heartbreak, it was not something that I really processed, although I didn't know. And I had gone through, particularly after my son, a really bad stint with postpartum depression and baby blues, as they call them. And there were other things that were going on in our life at the time too, but I never really processed it because I was just sitting in this gratitude of, okay, I have my kids. Everything is great. Everything is great. And not really letting myself have those experiences until much later. And then it was the quiet of the pandemic that really forced me into this place where I was processing a lot of feelings, not just this, but this was something in particular that came out in my artwork. And I created a whole body of work around that. And it was sort of at the intersection of femininity and healing and sexual power and grace. And it just became this sort of explosion of color and work, very different than what I was normally or was typically creating before. And I mean, I say typical, but that's just because it's what my art looks like. But it was very different. And I was kind of marrying my love of abstract work with figurative art as well, and creating these paintings that ended up becoming almost like these self-portraits. And it really was that practice that helped me to process those feelings while we were going through this global trauma of COVID-19 and collectively feeling like so isolated and really not knowing, were we going to be okay? What's happening in the world? Are people going to be okay? Am I ever going to be able to see my parents again? Am I ever going to be able to see grandmothers again? Like all these things. And so there was a lot going on at the time, but I was channeling all of that. And it was like a lesson in listening to my intuition, because I had a dream about these poppy flowers, and they are these flowers that are very fragile and rooted in strength. Mm-hmm. And they symbolize grief, but also a resurrection. And I had this really weird dream about them. And then I just kind of started to write in my journals, and then all these feelings started to pour out. And I was like, I've never really processed this really painful, difficult time in my life until now. And it was like this sort of forced shutdown that made me do it. And so as much as I think that I'm a person who like looks inward and silences and is searching for peace all the time, sometimes when you're forced into it is when it comes, which is why I always tell people, like, just quiet down, just quiet and let yourself be in that silence. I read something recently that really stayed with me, is that there's power in the pause.
Yes.
Right? And everything is moving so quickly all the time. And there's all these things like, can I do this? Am I good enough? What will people think? All these things. And it's like, okay, just pause, right?
Power in the pause. Even when you're speaking, there's so much power in an intentional pause when you're speaking and sharing a story.
Yeah, I didn't make that up. But sometimes it's like things are so clear and they're so obvious, but when you're rushing through everything, you don't even realize it and you don't recognize it. And I think that we are moving at such a quick pace all the time. Our bodies did not evolve to take in this much information so quickly. And I'm making dinner and it's Alexa's telling me it's going to snow. And my dog is barking because someone's outside. And my son is asking me if he can play a video game. And my daughter has homework. And my husband has to come home from work. I have to pick him up. And like my emails pinging constantly. And like Instagram notifications and this and that, text messages and calendar pings. And we're not supposed to be having all that input all the time.
No.
And so that's one thing that I tell my kids a lot is slow down, right? I'm not good at it, by the way. I am a very ambitious, motivated person. My parents used to tell me that when I was little, it was like a motor was inside of me. I was constantly, and I'm very much like that. And my family will tell you, I have a lot of ideas and I want to, but pause. Let's have dinner together. Even if it's just 15 minutes, let's just talk about our days or just be together. Pause. Don't respond to those emails right away. Don't be reactionary all the time. And these are all things that you can take your power back and you can calm your own nervous system when you just pause, right?
For sure.
And like, not rush. And that's why I also like my studio, because if things are going badly, I'm just like, okay, I'm just going to come back to it. I work on 5 different paintings at a time. That's cool. I don't know. Like I reserve the right to change my mind, to stop, to not be constantly rushed and tense and anxious. I don't want to live like that. And that's a lesson that was very hard for me to learn. But I think also the pandemic gave that to me, like that forced stop. I hated that time, but it also did a lot for me as a person.
Creating art and sharing.
I'm a good editor. I don't know how to edit my words.
Creating and sharing art, of course, is incredibly vulnerable. And especially, I think, when we're in the infancy stages of our art career, it requires a lot of confidence. And we've spoken about confidence. So how do you navigate exposing personal emotions or stories in your work? What has helped you build your confidence as an artist? And what impact do you think vulnerability has on the viewer's experience?
Well, I think that being vulnerable and the ability to be vulnerable is crucial to making art. I think that it's almost like you're naked in front of the world.
Exactly. You're stepping out on a stage in front of thousands of people.
Right. And also, I think that's something that like social media has given us is like this access to people that it can be a very good thing, but it could be a really terrible thing. I mean, people are vicious behind their computers. My friends and I always talk about like keyboard warriors. You know?
Yeah.
It's very easy to make comments about people from the safety of your own house when nobody cares. You think nobody cares, but people do. But I think vulnerability is a crucial component of making art. And I think it's really important as an artist to have a point of view and to not let those outside voices necessarily guide you. I think you have to listen to your own intuition as an artist and not let yourself be guided by what other people are thinking. And that also is an important lesson. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. It doesn't. It doesn't matter. Yourself, your voice, you know who you are, hopefully. I mean, a lot of these things just come with having that access to your own vulnerability and not being driven by those voices outside all the time. And it's okay. It's an important lesson. You can be yourself. You're not going to be for everybody. Everybody's not going to be for you.
That's right.
And I like what I like and you like what you like. And it's funny because I literally saw that one time on an episode of Sesame Street when my child was a baby and we were watching it. It's you like what you like, don't yuck my yum. It's so simple.
It is.
And yet we as people get so bogged down by what other people think and trends and ideas and what's happening and what will people say and think and do. And honestly, for me, getting to this point where it doesn't matter anymore. There's such a freedom in that. And I can't let myself be guided by what other people are doing and what other people are going to think and say. I can't. I spent a very long time doing that. And I don't know if it's time wasted because I think that it was an important part of growing up and having access to my own self. I never look at things or what happened with feelings of regret, because I do think that you have to go through what you have to go through to get to where you're going, even if you don't necessarily know where you're going yet.
For sure.
It's important to let yourself have those experiences, but just to be vulnerable and to think clearly and to let yourself have those experiences, I think is something that you shouldn't cheat yourself out of.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's all part of the journey. Definitely. What do you think your unique skill set or superpower is that's helped you become successful?
I don't know. I think we all define success so differently. For me, I just think I'm just a very curious person. I'm very curious. And I let myself be guided by that instead of being guided by like my worries or my fears. And I saw that actually recently as well. And it really made me think, oh, okay, let me just guide myself by my own curiosity, which is something that I already do, and not by what scares me.
And speaking of success, what does that word mean to you? How do you define success?
I think success for me means having peace of mind and feeling content, not satisfied necessarily, because I don't know if I'll ever be satisfied. I am a very ambitious person and I do have a lot of ideas and I have a lot of goals, but I think having peace of mind and knowing that my family is healthy and safe, that to me is my number one driving factor, as I said, like very early in the beginning. But the peace of mind, I think, and having that sort of mindset.
What would you say is one of the most important things you've learned in your life? And what was your life like before you learned it? And what was your life like after learning it? It's
become sort of like a theme, right? But that idea of knowing yourself and letting yourself be guided by your own intuition and not outside thoughts, and not really caring what other people think. Because when you are focused on that, then you're not really doing what you need to be doing for yourself. And you're not working in service of yourself. You're only working in service of others and trying to satisfy other people. And I think that learning that has brought a freedom and also a motivation to keep doing the things that I enjoy doing. And I feel like it's an important lesson. We all have to learn it. And as I said, like, I'm not very good at it. I do sometimes fall back and I'm like, oh, is that a good idea? I don't know. What will people think? And I know intellectually that it doesn't really matter, but just having that sort of mindset, like I said before, about knowing when something feels right, like in my own body, and if I'm doing the right thing. So I think my life has become infinitely better when I just let myself know that I'm doing the right thing for myself, for me, for my family.
What is one of your biggest failures, or we'll call them life lessons or teachable moments, and what did you learn from it?
So it's funny because I think that I've looked at a lot of things like, well, maybe I shouldn't have done this or I shouldn't have done that, like in my career or in my life. But I think that everything that we do is an important lesson, whether it was something that didn't work out or whether it was something that did work out. Mm-hmm. There was a period of time where I was like, oh gosh, why did I go to law school? What was that? Why? Like, it was 3 years and expensive and time and everything. Well, I needed to do that to know that I didn't want to do that. And so I don't necessarily call things like failures, because I think that it's important to reframe things that didn't work out. And so when I started looking at it that way, I started looking at less at things that I failed at and more of like things that I tried but didn't work. So that for me has been the lesson, not like focusing on things that didn't work out.
Okay, we're going to jump into a little rapid fire section here. So the next grouping of questions just be 1, 2, 3 word answer type thing. Okay.
So what you're saying is that this is going to be very hard for me.
You can do it, Monica. I believe in you.
Okay. I can do hard things and I can be comfortable being uncomfortable.
All right. How would you describe yourself in one word?
Motivated.
If you came with a warning label, what would yours say?
Can't stop, won't stop. Be aware. Beware.
What is one thing you love about yourself that is not related to your physical appearance?
My innate curiosity and my loyalty to my people.
What is your personal motto?
Keep at it.
If you could teach the world one thing, what would it be?
Be kind and patient with yourself.
What is your favorite self-care practice?
Therapy.
That concludes our rapid fire section. See, you did it. I'm proud of you. Good job, Monica. You did it.
Thank you.
That's
I
awesome.
Myself too.
You should be.
That was not easy for me. I'm
proud of you.
Elaborate. Yes.
What does the word empowerment mean to you?
I think empowerment means feeling strong and in your convictions and knowing that you're making the best choices with the information that you have at the time.
What challenge in your life has shaped you the most?
My infertility experience has really shaped me tremendously.
What is an unexpected blessing or occurrence in your life that you're grateful for?
Moving to where I live now. We fought for so long leaving New York City. We both just love the energy and the vibe and being in New York and feeling so, what you said before, empowered by that and having that whole world be part of our entire narrative and our identity. And leaving that, I was like 38 or 39 when we moved up to where we live now in the lower Hudson Valley. And I was like, how are we going to make friends? How are we going to make friends? Like, I closed my window at night and it was so dark and I was almost repulsed, offended by all the green and the nature around me. And it ended up being one of the most life-changing experiences. I feel very charged by the energy of nature and the Hudson River. And I love going into New York. And I mean, I don't live very far from there in my studio, right on the banks of the Hudson River. And I go in as often as I want. I go to museums and I go to galleries and I recharge myself in that way. But then I feel excited to come home and be in part of this quiet. When you have outside quiet, you can find inside quiet.
For sure.
And realize I don't need that. It was like kind of unnatural to be constantly so charged like that by everything, but it is a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Like the smells, the sounds, the vibe, the people,
the
different cultures, everything is so incredible and so motivating and so inspiring. But there's something to be said too for just closing the door on that and having different experiences. And that has been a really nice surprise in my life that I was not expecting. The friendships that I've made in my 40s too, everything that being a mom has taught me as well. I learned so much from my kids, more than I can probably ever teach them. It's really kind of crazy.
It's incredible to walk around New York City with a camera. I absolutely love it. I could spend hours upon hours just wandering. There is so much to capture.
Yeah, well, that's really how I kind of started my career as a photographer after I quit my job as a lawyer, and I felt so lost and like I had no place to be and I was trying to figure it out. And it was 2008 and we were just starting to do blogs and just starting to really share online. And it was just me and my camera. And I started to take pictures. And I mean, I had already been doing that, but just having all this time to be out there with my camera and with my thoughts and writing and just sharing and doing all that, it's really amazing.
It is.
And just sit on the same corner for 2 hours and you can watch a whole universe pass you by.
Yeah. It's incredible. It really is. It's such an incredible city. It is energetic. It charges you and it brings out the artistic ability and creativity in you when you sit around and when you walk around that city.
Well, there is just so much at your fingertips. Culture,
yeah,
all the culture you could want. Galleries, art, museums, the people, the stories. Everywhere you go, there's something happening. You don't have to go anywhere. You are somewhere.
Yeah.
And just walking around in Central Park and listening to people, the sounds, like the honks, everything. It's just like and again, like it's a totally sensory overload.
Yeah, it is.
It is sometimes really hard to tap into your intuition when you are in that environment. But at the same time, it fuels so much. If you're a curious person, if you're a lifelong learner, if you're somebody who enjoys learning about different things, then you're going to thrive.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, now you can find things at your fingertips, of course, but there's one thing to see it like on your social media. It's another to just be in that environment. So I love going to New York and just being a part of that and having that be such a huge part of my story because I lived there for so long and we bounced around to a few different boroughs before we lived in New York for about 10 years in Manhattan. And it was such a huge part of who we became and who we are. I mean, I lived half my 20s and almost all my 30s in New York City. And it's just always have that with me.
Yeah.
Go back to that a lot.
How do you celebrate your wins?
Yeah, I'm not really good at that. I feel like one of the things that I'm really working on is, I said before, there's power in the pause, but I think one of the things that I'm really working on for maybe this year, I'll finally learn it, is celebrating my wins and not always thinking about what's next. Because I have a tendency to do that because I am kind of ambitious. And I don't think that's like a bad word, right?
Nope.
But I do think that learning how to celebrate my wins is something that I definitely want to get better at. Sharing about my wins and not being like, oh, it's not a big deal. It is a big deal. When I have something that happens that is exciting, I want to share about it in a way that doesn't make me feel like it's not enough. I want to be able to be proud of myself. And I'm really good at telling other people what to do, sharing about it. And I'm really good at that, but I'm working on it. I'm working on celebrating my own wins.
Good for
I'm
you.
definitely sharing more about my own wins, my newsletter and my Instagram. And my family and friends and my close circle. But I think I need advice in that area.
If you could step into my shoes, what question would you have asked yourself that I didn't ask you?
I think you asked me pretty much anything. Wow. I mean, I don't know. You're such a great interviewer, really. You really made me think a lot about things that
Yay!
Yay. I know. Well, that's why I like the podcast, because I feel like you really get below the surface. And some people don't really do that. It's like you're having these surface conversations with people and people don't really want to get to know you. And I think it's important that we really ask people the things that you're asking, like what motivates you? Hey, are you okay? I always tell people if we would just ask each other that more often, we would be such a healthier society, right?
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Monica, but it makes me think of when you walk down the street or you come in contact with someone that you know and you say hello and you ask them how they are. I have found, and I don't want to believe this, but I think that it's become a question that we ask people just because we think we have to ask it. You don't really care to sit down and have the conversation, to listen to what that person's saying, to tell you that, you know what, I'm not okay. Would you sit there and listen to the person and spend the time with them? Or again, is it just a question you ask because we've been conditioned to say, hello, how are you? Do you really give a shit though?
Well, that's the thing. I think that a lot of people don't.
They don't. I agree.
I think that listening to people is something that's like the greatest gift that you can give a person. Mm-hmm. And again, like pausing, not being so much in a rush to get to the next thing. I mean, look, sometimes people are busy. They have to go. They don't have time. But I do think that having that ability to really listen to a person, what their experience is, what's happening in their life, we are so distracted all the time. I mean, I have a hard rule: no phones at dinner. I don't want it anywhere near. I will shut my notifications off. Don't look at my phone at night. Have bedtime with my kids with no devices. I want to have people feel like they have my undivided attention when I'm with them. And it's true. People are just really bad at that lately. Yeah. It's because we are so distracted all the time by just all these other things that are happening.
For sure.
But yeah, asking someone if you're okay and really caring to hear the answer.
And I think that also speaks to actually listening to someone, as you said, but not listening to respond, listening to actually hear what that person is saying, which I think is another problem. People think they're good listeners, and I can tell you a lot of them are not.
Yeah, no, I know, because they're always thinking about what's next. And I think a lot of people also, they listen to respond instead of listening to really hear what it is that you're telling them. And sometimes people are just really bad at that. Something that I tell my daughter all the time, or my kid, both my kids or whoever, do you want me to give you advice, or do you just want me to listen? I am really bad at that too, because I want to just help, you know? But sometimes people just need to talk, and not to like a therapist. Sometimes people just need to talk to their friends. I mean, I need to talk to my therapist. I know that about myself, but I also need to talk to my friends. And I need to talk to my husband, and I need to talk to my sister, and I need to talk to my mom. And all of those people are going to give me something different.
For sure.
And so it's important. It's definitely important to be somebody who listens to listen, not just to respond.
For sure. Monica, if you had the opportunity to sit down and have a 1-hour conversation with one woman, any woman in the world, who would it be and why?
This is just a very easy question. I would pick my great-grandmother. She passed away when I was 21. Her name was Anita Antonucci Lenari, and she was just this incredible, spirited, smart woman who lived through wars and plagues and all these things. And she was 87 when she died, and I was 21. I'm very lucky because I still have both of my grandmothers with me.
Wow.
And they are 93, and they are incredible. And I talk to them all the time. I was actually just texting. WhatsApp is an amazing thing. One of my grandmothers is in Argentina, my father's mother. And I was just texting with her and my aunt earlier, right before I jumped on here with you. But I would love to be able to just have 1 hour with my great-grandmother. We called her Moti, and that was just like her nickname. In Latin culture, everybody's got a nickname. So that was her. And knowing what I know now, I'd like to sit down and just talk to her as a 47-year-old woman.
Beautiful.
2 children, and having gone through things that I've gone through in my career and my life. I mean, I'm lucky because I have my grandmothers too, right?
Yes, for sure.
But she was alive at a different time. And I just want to talk to her again so much. I mean, I do. I have her with me. I feel her. I have a picture of her in my studio, and I feel her presence with me all the time.
That's beautiful.
But I just would love to. I mean, her and Oprah could come too.
We'll bring her along.
Mind having Oprah there, my God.
We'll bring her along just because she could tag along.
Oprah is like, God, idol. But I would love to just talk to her for 1 hour, and it would never be enough. An hour would never be enough.
No,
I just want to listen to her. Speaking of listening, she already knows that's what's going on with me. So,
if you could go back and give your younger self one piece of advice, what would that piece of advice be?
Just be yourself. Be yourself, and don't worry what everybody else is doing.
Lastly, Monica, if you were to deliver your last 30-second speech to the world, your tribe, your corner of the world, your people, what would that last 30 seconds sound like? What words of wisdom would you impart?
Be kind to yourself. Be patient to yourself. Love each other. Listen to each other. And listen to what your intuition and your heart are telling you. It always knows best. Don't deny yourself that joy and that experience because of your own fear, and always remain curious.
Beautifully said. Wonderful way to end the interview. Monica, thank you so much for taking and making the time to be here with me today. I have thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. Thank you for sharing your story, your journey, and just the conversation was incredible, so inspiring and creative and all. I love talking about this stuff. So it was a wonderful conversation. I appreciate you making and taking the time to be here with me today. And it's been an absolute pleasure to sit down with you and share in your journey.
I'm so grateful. Thank you so much for asking me, Brad. This has been really amazing. Thank you so much.
It is my honor and my pleasure. So thank you. Once again, my name is Brad Walsh, host of your Empowerography podcast. Today, my guest has been Monica Shulman. She is a painter/artist and a mother. So thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure, Monica. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day.
Thank you. You as well.
Thank you very much for listening to this podcast. If you haven't yet, please be sure to subscribe, rate, review, and share with all your friends. You can find me at visuphoria.ca and follow me on Instagram at Empowerography Podcast and on Facebook at Empowerography. Please join me next time for another inspirational story from yet another amazing woman.